Hello, everybody. Welcome to Beyond the Price number 11. We are very much live. I'm here today without my illustrious co-host Pepito. He's away doing things. So you're stuck with me today. Congratulations, or my commiserations, one of the two. I hope everybody's doing very well. Let's just make this post. We can just let everybody know what's going on. Jump in the chat. Show comments. It's a lovely market today and over the past couple of days. I hope everybody's enjoying it. Things going up and things happening. It's nice to see fresh Bitcoin all-time highs. Maybe the least celebrated all-time high break of all time. I don't think I've ever seen the timeline so underwhelmed by an all-time high break, but there you go. That's where the market's at for you, I guess. All right. All right. Hey, Akshat. How are you doing? Hey, Pilot. Welcome. Thanks for tuning in. Today we are hopefully going to be joined by WooFi and Orderly Network, who have been doing great things. For those that don't know, Orderly is a decentralized trading infrastructure focused on providing centralized exchange-grade performance. And WooFi is a decentralized exchange known for its friendly interface, and they are both collaborating together at the moment, which is great to see. It's good to see lots more cross-application collaboration like this in this space. We all grow together and benefit from one another. Let me just ping the team. Don't have anybody coming up at the moment. We'll see where everybody's at. Glorious morning, no name. Glorious morning, Pilot. Hello, Snowzisk. Sorry for butchering that pronunciation. Hey, Mark. Pepito's busy. He's out of town for the minute. He said he might pop in a little later, but I'm not holding my breath. I am patiently waiting for our guests to tune in. Who allowed this? Yeah, I don't know, Mark. He's your brother. You should ask him. Thank you, Snozy. Thank you. Yeah, he's enjoying the life. No, that's right. He's resting on his laurels. Probably playing golf or something. Relaxing, just watching the market go up. And having a good time. Oh, they're backstage. Why can't I see them? Yeah, I do need Pepito for technical help. I thought I can't see anybody backstage. Are we on the? That's very odd. Just share the link. See if we can. There's Pepito. I can see Pepito on the stage. Here we go. Hello, Pepito. He's here. I can't see anybody else backstage though.
Oh shit!
I can't hear you
You've
either.
put me on.
This is going so well.
Checking. Tech is not responding well. Why?
Okay, I can hear you.
Wait, let me
That's
mute.
fine.
This is.
I can hear you now. It's okay. That was my fault. I can't see anybody, our beautiful guests backstage, so I don't actually know if they're beautiful or not, but I'm sure they are. Pub at the background, exactly no names here. We knew where he was. Is it just me that can't see them backstage, or are you not able to see them either? Yeah.
I think they had a different link. We.
Hey, there we go. Ben and Arjun. We
Oh,
can see
here
them.
he.
We can see them.
I'll let you guys.
Okay. Ben, Arjun, I'm going to bring you up. Here we go. That's the business. Well, I should be the small one. You guys should be larger. How's it going, guys? Sorry about the mix up there. How are we doing?
I'm doing well. How about yourself? Thanks for having us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Doing very well. Which one? Arjun, you just said there. And Ben, you can hear us okay?
I can. I think I got the link open on Twitter. I was actually watching it on another browser window and panicking a little bit about why I couldn't get on stage, but we've got that sorted out. I blame Pepito for all this. He gave us the wrong link and then he dipped off on holidays.
Yeah, I blame him too. He's an easy scapegoat for us today. Let's stick with that. It's all his fault.
Mhm.
All right, guys. Thanks very much for joining us. I gave a really quick intro to Woo and to Audley, but if you guys could, in your own words, give us a little bit of a introduction to both of them, and we can go from there.
Sure. I will. I was going to. I wasn't going to wait for your permission. But yes. So Woo, we have two core products. One is a decentralized exchange. One is a centralized exchange. Both of them consume a lot of data and produce a lot of data, which is why we're very close to the PIP network. We've been one of the earliest data providers on our markets. We have probably over 150 on the centralized side, and also on the decentralized side, a similar number of different spot assets, also for perp assets as well. On the DeFi side, we also have earn vaults that provide liquidity for some of our cross-chain swaps that are connected to 14 different networks, including EVM and Solana. So we do it all for traders, and we've built our reputation and culture around trying to make traders more successful, give them the tools they need, whether that's customizable interface, different liquidity options, faster access to assets, or just better engage like customer support, someone like me always being there to answer questions. So yeah, I think that's Woo in a nutshell. Arjun, take it away, sir.
Appreciate it. Yeah, Arjun from Audley. Audley is a modular omni-chain trading infrastructure and liquidity layer for DeFi, purpose-built layer 2 on the OP stack, with the focus of eliminating fragmented liquidity and bringing centralized exchange style trading experiences to the DeFi user. You can think of us a little bit like the Shopify for DEXs, if you will, or the Shopify for DeFi. We have no retail-facing front end ourselves, apart from an earn product. I can talk about that a little bit later. But the core offering is infrastructure and liquidity, the first ever EVM and non-EVM unified order book across 15 plus chains, including Solana, the non-EVM part there. But the big focus for us is a unified order book and deep liquidity across all of these chains. We can enable better price execution, lower slippage, and again, unfragmenting liquidity across all chains at once.
Fantastic. Thanks, guys. WooFi and Audley have close ties together, right? You guys collaborate. Can you expand a little bit more on that for the viewers?
Yeah, very close ties. Back in so WooFi is the DeFi arm of WooX, if you will. Audley was actually incubated back in 2021 by the Woo team. That spun out from a small team of 4 of us into a team of now 70 plus. But the purpose of that incubation back in 2021 is there was a clear alignment between the teams and what both teams wanted to build. WooFi now has WooFi Pro, which is their perp decks, and Ben can probably elaborate a bit more on that. It's the flagship builder on top of Audley's infrastructure and liquidity. They're probably consistently number 1 in terms of perpetual volume on top of Audley. So we have a very, very close relationship, both from an operational perspective in terms of the incubation, but also from a commercial perspective, because theoretically, Audley is a B2B business, right? And our largest client is the one that's doing the most revenue and the most volume, and that happens to be WooFi Pro.
Mm-hmm. I would add on to that point that the market dynamics in 2021, 2020 were a little different, and it was a little bit of an ecosystem arms race. You looked at what Binance was doing with the BNB chain ecosystem. Crypto.com had their own chain. FTX obviously had Solana, Serum, and so we knew to compete, we had to go all in on DeFi, and what that would look like, right? Because DeFi is supposed to be neutral. We didn't think the best path was to create our own chain, Woo Chain, and then try to go head to head with the BNB chains of the world. So we wanted to create something that was, almost similar to how a centralized exchange is connected to every network, every asset. Users can access it from wherever they're most convenient, whatever their needs are. So that's how the idea for this omni-chain DeFi infrastructure arose. They've gone off over the last 3 years and built quite an impressive product. I think from the Woo side, sometimes seeing some of their partnerships with big partners like Radium, we can get a little bit of jealous at times, but we ultimately, like, what's good for the ecosystem is good for everybody. So yeah, that's kind of how it spun off. We still have very close ties for marketing, but I think that's just the nature of our teams in DeFi, right? Like, we also have very close ties to you guys, for example. So that's the beauty of DeFi.
Yeah, nice. I'm curious to know, Ben, what you think about the centralized exchange versus decentralized exchange dominance at the moment. And Arjun, maybe you can chime in on this too, because it's kind of been the centralized exchanges have been up and to the right, particularly over the past 12-ish months in terms of their trading volume versus centralized exchanges. And it seems like a lot of people are shifting away from centralized exchanges and doing a lot more stuff on chain, which is fantastic. But I'm wondering how you see the market structure there and sort of what your thoughts on that are moving forward. Do you think that's a trend that's likely to continue and you're positioning for that, or how do you see things there?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. I actually think being ambiguous is what a lot of businesses are doing, right? If you look at like Binance's business now, they have a lot of things that are on chain with Binance Alpha and supporting Pancake Swap and everything. This wasn't possible before because you had this strict regulatory pressure from the US, right? And you had to either be like really toe the line and be institutional, or you had to take a lot of risk. And so now we're seeing people are opening their arms to a little bit more innovation, and it's allowing people to do things that ultimately are more. You're competing on innovation, right, for users and assets, rather than competing on like a regulatory, territory, ring fencing, licenses and stuff. It's a much different game, and I think it's probably what's going to happen in the future. Even other you look at the Cloud Wars and a lot of the strong participants. Like, how decentralized are they? That's not even a conversation anymore. That used to be a thing where people are like, oh, is it really decentralized? I think people now are prioritizing what can get me to the assets I want with the liquidity I want when I want it, right? That is what is most important to me as a user, not how many nodes are being run by different people. So yeah, I think that's probably how it's going to go. I think any business that tries to focus on one or the other is probably going to have an inferior product. And I would say, apart from maybe like the Fidelities and the BlackRocks of the world, who are also building quite a very strong business within our ecosystems, right? So it's an evolving landscape, and there's a lot more opportunities out there.
Yeah, I kind of echo what Ben was referencing in terms of an evolving landscape. I think there are a couple of different like levers that continue to push that, right? Like one, obviously, I know you kind of referenced the last 12 months, but like a lot of this has been built up like post FTX, right? In terms of self custody, people feeling comfortable. The second piece is asset inception, right? Asset inception is happening on chain. Technology is evolving very, very quickly in the DeFi world, right? And we're able to see multiple different DeFi protocols list tokens much, much quicker than their CeFi counterparts, right? And when I think back in terms of like what users are thinking about when they're thinking about like what type of edge that they can have, one lever that they can pull is speed, right? And ability to get action on that asset as quickly as possible. If it's going to take a tier 2, tier 3 exchange, centralized exchange, 2 to 5 weeks to list an asset, when it becomes hot, when the community is already thinking about it, when it's got lots of virality and loads of holders, well, that's counterintuitive because it's already happened on chain, right? On the spot markets at least. So when it comes to the perp side, obviously we're seeing volumes increasing because as we're able to list more newer assets on chain, people are just going to they're already buying it on chain, so they're able to trade perps with it on chain, right? So it has these levers where people will go to where they can access the asset, and they're not going to move to the if they've already done that. If you want to be fast, if you want to be quick, if you want to get access, you're going to have to do that on chain. The second part to that is listings on chain can typically be free, right? They can be community driven. If random X meme coin has hit 10,000 holders, X amount of volume on top of it, name your perp dex or name your, they're going to list it instantly, right? Whereas a T1 exchange is going to, have their listing team reach out to the community or whoever's the CTO or whoever the project team is going to look like, and they're going to ask for whatever multiple it is of token supply, whatever it is for internal market maker, whatever they're going to ask for listing price and marketing fees as well, right? The more barriers that you put up on CeFi, the less you're going to see on DeFi, right? And innovation is happening way quicker in the last 12 months on DeFi, whether it's and again, when I talk about innovation, I'm not just talking about access to the asset, but I'm talking about ease of access to the asset as well, right? So account abstraction, social wallets, Web 2 style logins and flow, fiat on ramps, all of these things have greatly improved over the last 12 months. So I can get that look and feel of Web 2, but on Web 3 now, and that's going to continue to drive up.
I think that's a really interesting observation, actually, and it's only just really occurred to me. But I remember during the 2017 to 2020 cycle, a lot of money was made on people buying tokens and hoping for a tier 1 listing and then selling into the tier 1 listing after it would you get a tier 1 listing, it'd pump because all of these people got all this access to the token and could now buy it, and you could kind of sell into that. Whereas now it's almost the opposite, right? As soon as you get a tier 1 listing, the token starts dumping and everybody's already bought it. It's kind of flipped it on its head because everybody's playing and trading on chain and on exchanges or Solana primarily at the moment. So it's kind of shifted that whole dynamic. It's a cool observation, Arjun. Arjun, can you give us a bit more detail on Orderly and Orderly staking and what you guys have got going on in the ecosystem at the moment?
Yeah, so broadly, as I said at the start, you can think of us as a infrastructure and liquidity play, right? We have 52 different DeFi protocols that are plugged into Orderly, with a myriad of different use cases. As an example, we have WooFi, as I said, our flagship product on top of us. WooFi, thanks Ben. WooFi enables native deposits and withdrawals from 15 plus chains, right? The entire ethos of what we think about Orderly is trade anything, anywhere. And the way we talk about that is there's a lot of bridging, a lot of wrapped assets, a lot of risk for the user, right? Or if the user wants to go to a certain perp dex because asset inception happened there or asset listing happened there that I just mentioned in my last question, they're going to have to find a way to be able to bridge funds to that chain and start trading in a choice of collateral, or maybe not even their choice of collateral. At Orderly, we have WooFi Pro, deposit native and native USDC from chain of your choice, 15 plus chains, including Solana. Your assets will never be bridged. They will stay on that chain, right? And that's critical for the user and the user experience, right? And especially when it comes to not just user experience, but things behind the hood that they might not see in terms of breach risk and wrapped assets, right? Then you might have somebody like Radium, right? One of the largest AMMs in the Solana ecosystem. Radium now have perpetual futures. That's fully powered by Audley's backend infra and liquidity, but Radium decides to start to stay Solana native. So they have native deposits and withdrawals just on Solana, nothing else. Makes sense. We also have QuickSwap. They're doing the exact same playbook as Radium, but just on Polygon. And we have a suite of other builders that could be centralized exchanges that want a DeFi arm. They could be wallets that want to add perps into their UI. It could be AMMs that want to widen their product offering and offer perps. It could be meme coins that want to add new utility and launch a perp dex. We've seen the rise of the Bonk ecosystem and all the things that Bonk are doing within DeFi and the value and utility back to the meme coin. So Audley really services a huge range of different use cases and different communities. And I'd actually say that's a testament to the thinking that we had back then, that we don't want to just be a perp dex on one chain. We want to be perp dex infra and liquidity on every chain. And we kind of snap it, like I said, trade anything, anywhere. And when you think about that thought process and every business decision that we do and every product that we roll out, does that enable trade anything, anywhere? Yes or no? If the answer is no, then we won't do it. The future for us is continuing to explore more chains. It's a little bit slower than it was, I don't know, 6 to 12 months ago, right? We were rolling out chain after chain every single week. We can now be very strategic in the chains that we want to roll out. Probably 12 months ago, there was a new L1, L2 every 3 minutes, right? Now it's every month, maybe, or maybe that's a little bit too light, right? But we can pick and choose as and when we do, when we see demand from the builders on our side and they say, hey, we want to be on Mega ETH. And when we see demand from users, hey, why isn't there an Audley powered DEX on Mega ETH? Or if Mega ETH come to us and say, hey, we need perps out the box on day one, we don't have any builders doing that. And if they do, it's not going to be as performant as Audley. How can we get it? If we hit those three things, we'll go and deploy on that chain. So the future us is thinking about that and refining a bunch of other different pieces. And we have a lot of different products coming up in the roadmap too.
Cool. Now, does Audley have a token? We
do. It's the order token. Price feeds provided by Pith. So thank you very, very much. We have a token. It's actually an OFT, which is the Layer 0 Omnichain fungible token standard. It's available across 6 different chains, including Solana and EVM chains. The purpose of the token is to drive utility back to the user and value back to the user. So staking the order token on the chain of your choice, doesn't matter what you do, you will receive 60% of all orderly trading fees and all orderly revenue that we make, and we give that back to the user. The other 40%, we actually put that into a earn product where you can deposit USDC and earn yield as well.
Okay, cool. Ben, how does Woo fit into this? You're obviously an orderly front end, and you have a token as well, or no, not yet?
No, we've had a token since 2020. It's listed on almost every major centralized exchange. It has liquidity on Layer 1 Ethereum, Arbitrum, Base. Also, Solana has some liquidity as well. Also an OFT. Also price feeds powered by Pith, among other things. And yeah, I mean, our token is also one of the core parts of our token. I think it's been built around, we were one of the first to direct revenues back to token holders. So every, 80% of our fees from our swaps and from our perp decks go back to stakers in the form of USDC, and then they have the opportunity to either take USDC or to auto compound by buying back Woo on chain. So I think we were a little bit early on this model. We need to obviously ramp up volumes tremendously, really, to push us back into that tier 1 perspective. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the work we're doing now, I think the trends in crypto are aligning nicely for us. Focusing on fundamentals, focusing on crypto that have high circulating to FTV caps, right? Low future inflation. Related to like a core pillar like cloud DEXs are obviously like a strong trend, right? So we tick a lot of these boxes, and we have a really strong track record, I think, as a team, being there day in and day out for 4 or 5 years now. So hopefully we can use these advantages to really make an impact in the crypto space.
Yeah. How are you thinking about the growth aspect of that? Because obviously there's one particular player in the space who's taken up the vast majority of the mind share in this regard, and I probably don't even need to mention their name. Everybody knows who I'm talking about.
RabbitX.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. I'd be curious to know how you're thinking about that from both like a technical fundamental standpoint, but also from like a community standpoint as well, because they play a huge part in that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a really big pie out there, right? Like, I don't think it's PvP. I mean, we've seen dozens of centralized exchanges carve out really profitable businesses over the years, and as that volume flows more into DeFi, and then on top of that, you have this like TradFi, who's also coming in. We're starting to see, tokenized stocks, tokenized RWAs, all these things that are now forming like a larger and larger market. I don't think we need to worry so much about what's competitor A doing and what's competitor B doing. I think it's really just about that user experience and then doing what we're good at. And I think what we are good at is because we run a centralized exchange, we do understand how this growth marketing exists in Web 2 and Web 3 combined. I think that's something we can apply. I think we've always been very community driven, so we can use that as well. And then, Orderly is solely focused on the tech, which I think is a huge advantage, right? Because they can continue to build out the SDK to keep innovating, providing new features, deploying on new chains, providing liquidity on new assets, right? So we focus on the growth, they focus on the tech, and it forms a really strong partnership. I think you've seen it with a lot of other early movers in DeFi, where they get a huge lead in a certain vertical and they don't know what to do with it, right? It's hard to innovate, and then everybody sees what they're doing, they catch up, and then within 2 years, like GMX is a great example here. They had that horrible incident yesterday, so feel terrible about that. But they were like the first really on-chain perp DEX, and then it's really hard to double down on that early mover advantage because everything's on chain. People can see where your innovation is. If you can't then convert on the growth side, it's hard to move because other people will, right? Other people are moving fast, and so that's the opportunity for us now.
Yeah, so hyper competitive, right?
Yeah, and you do feel it. I'm sure you feel it too. Like as a builder,
yeah, no doubt.
You see so many like extractors in the space and just general like tourists, KOLs, whatever, and like they're all being very successful, at least on the outside. Building in crypto is an absolute grind because it's 24/7. There's always something that like could go wrong, and the stress from that, and then the competition, and then people love a new project versus an old project. So yeah, I mean, you got to find a team that has that grit and determination and knows how to do it. And so I think being able to build a strong team, that's equally as important to having that early mover, that strong catalyst at the beginning that gives people market share.
Yeah. Arjun, I'm curious to know how you approach community on your side of things, because the community approach for Pith is an interesting one. And just from my perspective, being an infrastructure project makes community both easier and harder at the same time, in a sense, because you on one hand you are you touch everything and you have a hand in everything, and you're essential to a lot of things functioning well and seamlessly, and without that the whole system goes down, for lack of a better word. But if you're doing your job well and executing correctly, nobody really knows that you're being used, and you don't have necessarily a thing or a product or something that people can readily touch or engage with. So I'm really curious to know what your sort of philosophy towards community is. And I know you said you had a focus on community because obviously they're going to be the ones who are demanding that you integrate X chain or provide X asset or whatever. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
So firstly, like chop without making too many assumptions, right? But all three of us started as community members in some capacity, right? Like whatever year we get into crypto, every single person I know that's in crypto to an extent is some form of community member, right? So we know what it feels like to be logging into a Telegram or a Discord with 500 people or 20,000 people and seeing the excitement of the buy and sells and feeling the lows of the lack of buy and sells, or the when marketing, the when Binance, the when US, like when roadmap, or you guys said 1st of July, and it's the 30th of June. This is happening tomorrow, right? And then you flip to the builder side of like, guys, we're trying to build something amazing here, a multi-decade product, quote unquote, future of finance, and you're wondering about a one-day difference, and we're going to roll it out on the 3rd of July versus the 1st of July. Like, come on, give me a break, right? So I get both sides of a coin, right? And that's really important to us. I would say two pieces when I think about community. Number one, community is critical, right? In terms of getting feedback, understanding what they want, right? You have to remember that the community is not just for your project, right? A community member is not just an Audley or a Woo or a Pith, right? They're probably in 10, 15, 20 different communities. They might be a mod in someone else's Discord. They may have been hardcore community members in another project and capitulate and come over, right? And when they're giving you feedback about your project particularly, you have to also understand that they've got their fingers in many pies, right? Like they understand multiple different projects all at once and what's going on, what's going well, what isn't going well. And they're able to surface that information and that feedback back to you. And, we have a big team at Audley, right? But it's nowhere near as in the trenches, if you will, in terms of what's going on in other communities. So our community is a vehicle for us to get an understanding of what's going on in other communities, what other people are building, what's working well, what isn't going well, what rumbles they might hear about potential competitors competitors might be using, and then they're telling us, hey, X is going to be doing this in 3 months, Audley should be doing it, and then suddenly we're like, well, we're already doing that, we're rolling that out next week. And little threads like that can accelerate momentum, but the flip side of that, they can also derail you, right? We have to remember, and I'm going to come back to this point, is when I think about building, we're building multi-decade products for mass market, right? And crypto isn't there yet, but hopefully in the next X timeline, it's going to be there, right? A small cohort of community members shouldn't also dictate the future of a multi-billion-dollar product, right?
Yeah.
And we shouldn't be hyper reactive that a lot of projects are to community said this, we can't do this, right? At the end of the day, you are building a project and you have a responsibility to investors, community, stakeholders, employees to build the best product possible. We have to listen to the community, but we can't be over-indexing and be hypersensitive to such a small cohort of people. But we should most definitely take the responsibility to listen to them, because they're coming from a place of knowledge and a place of influence as well, especially when it comes to token. And they are also your greatest supporters, and you should be rewarding them in the flip side. I'll end on a little piece. It's very, very difficult to gain mindshare as an infrastructure project, as you said, right? We recently just launched a Kaito leaderboard, and we're giving 10% of all fees that Audley makes. And Audley makes our fees in USDC, right? It's perps. We're market buying the order token. So we're increasing buy pressure for our order token, and we're giving 25% of all fees that we make in order token to Kaito yappers. So again, real yield, buy pressure, and giving back to the community is critical for us.
How's your position on the Yap leaderboard, Arjun?
Not really sure. But either way, I'm not farming it.
He's not sure. That means it's bad.
Yeah, I don't think it's great.
Let's go. How have you found? How old is the Kaito leaderboard? How have you found it so far?
I think it's about 3 weeks at this point.
Okay.
It's actually energizing, right? There's a lot of, and this is something I know Kaito are working on. There's a lot of what I'll say, quote unquote, is AI slop and reply bots out there. But I've actually found it almost, really enjoyable actually. Like, people are coming out the woodwork that we know. People are learning more about us, and it's that kind of light bulb moment of like, oh my god, I didn't know you guys did this. I'm like, we've been tweeting about this for months and months. What do you mean you didn't know we did this? But
Yeah.
it's a new avenue for us to reach new community members. My DMs are full of people, and I've been engaging with them, going back and forth, getting amazing feedback. And I'm finding a lot of energy out of it. You know, it feels pre-TGE era in terms of that excitement with the community, and we're getting that feedback. We're enjoying it, and we're onboarding more people into the community that are extremely vocal and ready to put their hands up and help us.
That's great. You mentioned the AI slop. Have you noticed? And Ben, this is for you too, I guess. Have you guys noticed a market change in your Twitter feeds over the past couple of months since the introduction of Kaito? I'd be curious to know your just general thoughts on it. I know a lot of people have very strong opinions about it.
Yeah, I actually shared the screen. I don't know if you can bring it up on stage.
Yeah, I can for sure.
Give it some visual. Look at that.
Yep.
You know, it's interesting for order that you see some big names on it. It's like 30-day, like Brian Pellegrino, obviously Arjun. You know, you probably talked about. You know, Orderly is one of the biggest because it's an omni-chain app. You know, it uses a lot of layer 0 messaging. So some big names, UniPCS, who's Bonk guy, who's having just a remarkable year with his trading. I used to be on here, but you know, out of respect for the community, I didn't want to take all those rewards, so I let my position slide to the wayside.
If you just click 12 months there, Chop.
No, that's Ben. That's Ben's.
Oh, Ben, sorry.
I'm the one doing the heavy lifting.
There I am, number 2. Oh, no, number 4.
Number 4, yes.
So I let my foot go off the gas a little bit, but you know, we're focused on building instead of tweeting.
Nice. I like that.
Well, you have a responsibility to do both as a C-level, right?
This is very true.
That's true. I've been in an attempt to combat slop, just actively bullying anybody that's posting just blatant slop on the timeline and telling them to stop and that they're hurting me and degrading themselves. And it seems to have worked. The social pressure of bullying does work. Never let anybody tell you bullying doesn't work, because it does.
Arjun knows. He got bullied a lot in school.
I welcome it from Ben on a daily basis. Let's say that.
That's why he works in crypto now.
Yeah, there you go. It's the same for me. Same for me. I know where you're coming from. I don't.
Yeah. No, I view Kaito anything like as a channel, right? And if you develop that channel, you're going to get strong returns out of it. If you just do it to tick a box, it's going to be slop. I think the opportunity to engage with these people, share a lot of content that allows them to share things that are actually meaningful. I think that's important. You know, I'm glad to see like the big innovation, which is no more under the table KOL deals, right? Like, because that was bad. I think what it's done to like the dead internet theory and, you know, like, these sort of things where the whole world is just consuming AI stuff all the time is something we have to worry about. But I think that's more of a philosophical topic for another day. But yeah, it's I'm interested to see how they keep refining it, because they have to. Otherwise, people would just go to another platform. The platform itself is not that innovative. It's just pulling data from the Twitter API, ranking it according to some metrics. How they keep innovating, I think, will be very telling. And you know, we like the Kaito team, so I suspect that they will.
Yeah, no, I agree. You raised 2 interesting points there. One being the dead internet theory, and since the introduction of Kaito, I've all of a sudden become slightly more interested in scanning my iris to become a verifiable human online and on chain. I think I kind of dismissed that as a terrible idea a while ago, but now after seeing everything happening, like this actually, despite the very obvious privacy concerns, actually might be a decent idea about how to get rid of that. And there's obviously a big market opening up there for somebody to solve that issue. And the second one around KOLs I find really interesting too, because it's kind of, I've been treating community as though we have our own built-in KOLs, and that we should be, instead of using bought and paid KOLs, leaning into our community and building them up and building their personalities and accounts and everything up as much as possible, and having our own homegrown KOLs that know the product intimately and are genuinely passionate about it, as opposed to having somebody who's just been given a bag of something to say X, Y, and Z and then never re-engage with the product again.
I've been a part of that in the early days. Like, those tokens are in the Uniswap pool faster than anything you've ever seen. Like, they make one tweet, get the tokens, bam, gone, right? It's it's a much needed innovation in crypto.
It is. Ben, you mentioned before the dealing with the fast-paced crypto environment. I'm curious to know. I try to ask people who work in crypto this frequently, but how do you de-stress? How do you step away and remove yourself from the chaos? And same question to you, Arjun.
I can already tell you Ben's answer. He loves a beer. When I first started speaking to Ben as a community member, right, as a bag holder for Woo, and a community member, and Ben was very, very good in terms of like overall owning marketing at WooX and speaking to the community. And I just wanted to speak to this guy, and we did a few video calls. And I think you were in China back then, weren't you, Ben?
I was.
He was in the Woo Shanghai office, so he was always taking calls really, really, really late. And he always had a bottle of beer in his hand. And I was like, sometimes you're not sure if it was a beer. You're like, oh, he just got a bottle in his hand. And then he was like, having a beer. And I was like, this guy's just drinking at the office every day.
That's a good answer. There's nothing wrong with that though, Ben. I can totally get behind that.
Yeah, I guess my retort to that, not that it needs one. I've just always had that personality that's very like, you focus on one thing until the job is done, whether that was as a kid, like building a Lego set or trying to beat some Zelda video game. So I approach work with that. And like, luckily I love crypto, even if I'm not working. I'm always like on reading about it, trading, just trying to find new things. So I find that part of it's not a problem for me to be like fully immersed. I think the challenges recently has been about taking on more as a role, managing things that are a little bit outside my comfort zone, and becoming more data driven in areas that I wasn't as detailed about before. So yeah, I mean that part, it's a lot of calls, but I think you just, at the end of the day, you think about the opportunity that exists out there, right? And like, if I want a comfortable job, I could always go into something more Web 2 or like teaching or something a little bit more gentle. And I think, I'm a little bit older now as crypto goes. I'm in my mid to late 30s. So I figure I'm going to put in another 4 to 10 years, a few more cycles hard. And then after that, I can, kind of go off into the twilight. But yeah, I mean, I love it. And I think that's the core answer here, is that you have to love crypto and really consume it to stay at the top.
Yeah, I think that it seems to attract those personality types.
Mm-hmm.
In my experience, there's a lot of us out there.
Mm-hmm.
Simple answer is you don't step away. You continue to lean in.
It's a love for it, right? Like, I remember when I was in my like Web 2 job, like 9 to 5 job, I was always working late-ish. But after I finished work, I was doing the exact same thing. I was on crypto Twitter, I was on YouTube, I was reading white papers, I was on Telegram. And then when I pivoted to full-time Web3, when I quote unquote finished work, I mean, I'm doing the exact same thing anyway, right? Like, and it's exactly what Ben said. It's a love for it. It's a passion for it, right? I think de-stressing is critical because, like whether it's your physical health, your mental health, time with family and friends, loved ones, whatever you want to call it, if you don't get that time, you're not going to have clear and logical thinking. Like it's close enough to being impossible to be able to, let's say somebody like high functioning, working, autistic style personality like Elon, right? Like he's even sitting there playing video games and people are like, oh my God, how are you playing video games when you're running multiple billion-dollar companies? I was like, well, he has to de-stress in whatever version so he can be at his best to be able to do those things, right? So I do think de-stressing is critical. I think, like price is down, you can stay up till 4 a.m. saying that you're working, but you're going to wake up and the price is still going to be where it is. Price is up, you stay up till 4 a.m. working and the price is still going to be where it is, right? You staying up till all hours or you being stressed or you trying to multi-manage 10,000 tasks at once isn't going to be conducive to the price, right? Work efficiently, work smart, work logically, take time to think logically, which is the de-stress part, and you're going to have a much more optimized like workflow.
Yeah, I like it. Arjun, you mentioned you both started out as community members, but I'd like to know a little bit more about sort of your path into crypto and how you found yourself working obsessively over this stuff day and night.
Yeah, so do you want me to go first? Ben, do you want to go? I feel like yours is more exciting.
I think he was talking to you because you brought it up. You go first.
Oh, Ben, you're there too. You're next, Ben.
Straight up after me anyway. So I got into crypto, I want to say late 2016. And I remember I was living with two housemates. They were both professional poker players and my good friends at the time. And one came downstairs and came into the kitchen and he's like, "Oh, have you heard about Bitcoin?" I was like, "Yeah, some like rumbles about it, whatever. I don't know anything about it, like something." And then he was like, quoting me the price of Bitcoin. And he was like, "But there's a number 2. It's called Ethereum. And it's at this price. And I think he can get to the same price as Bitcoin." And he was a smart guy, right? With no knowledge of evidently of like unit prices and market cap that he thought Bitcoin, if ETH was getting to the Bitcoin price, right? Me either, no knowledge. I was like, "Sounds great." So I threw in like $100 and I was like, this is super cool. Price is going up. Prices kept going up. And then I was like, this is actually going to get to the price of Bitcoin. So I don't know. I threw a bunch more money. You know, they always say don't
see where this is going.
Don't invest more. Don't invest more than you can afford to lose. And I was like, oh, this, you know, I didn't care if it was a crypto blockchain or a NASDAQ listed stock. I was just like, I'm betting, I'm gambling here. I'm an investor, whatever. Terrible, right? I can't even remember what age I was, but it was late 2016. I invested way more than I could afford to lose. Somehow, the best inverse trader in the world, I bought the exact top of that market cycle. And then for about 4 years, I was underwater and actually literally in it for the tech. And I actually just kind of got really obsessed with it. I was listening to the live streams of the Ethereum Foundation dev calls every other week. I was reading white papers. I was like really almost confusingly obsessed about crypto. A couple of friends kind of got involved. I was working at Google at the time. I worked at Google for about 9-10 years, like focusing on business development, go-to-market strategy. And I was helping grow companies from 0 to 1. And at that point, I was like, hang on a minute, 2 things that I like: doing my job at Google, but also crypto. There's a bunch of companies that are over-indexed on tech talent and don't have huge amounts of business acumen or operational acumen. I wonder if I can help them. So I started doing some advisory work for a couple of crypto companies. I started my thesis in, like, let's say 2018 to 2020 cycle was exchanges. So I was buying a lot of exchange tokens. That's how I got involved in understanding a bit more about Woo and talking to Ben. At that point, Ben introduced me to the wider Woo team. I was kind of helping the Woo team out in different areas. The idea of Audley came about. We focused on the fundraise and getting the MVP out for Audley from a product perspective. And there I had it. I was full-time out of my Web2 job at Google and joined Google full-time. I joined Audley full-time, sorry.
Awesome. How long ago was it that you joined Audley?
Officially at Google, April 2021, but unofficially was probably October 2020.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And Ben, same question to you.
Yeah, I'm going to speed run it because we have about 10 minutes left, and I wanted to talk a little bit more about Pyth and Woo and everything.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was kind of lucky. Yeah, I was kind of lucky that I was in Asia, specifically China, and then China had a lot of the societal issues that lead to technologies like Bitcoin being adopted. And I witnessing firsthand, like as a foreigner in China, like trying to send money to somebody back home, how frustrating that was going to the banks and no one can understand you and they want to see your documents and they're not convinced that the documents are the right documents. This is every foreigner's story in a foreign land, right? Particularly in China where there's a lot of capital controls and internet controls and other different things. So I actually was in it for the tech from the beginning. I would say for the first year, this was like 2017, I was doing things like my own personal mining rigs and like setting up IOTA nodes and doing stupid things like that. Also got overinvested on the altcoin side, believing in a lot of the enterprise applications that were going to change the world, like carbon credits and stuff like this.
Can you name it? Can you name it a token that you really had conviction in and went to zero?
Not that went to zero, but I mean, I really believed in things like IOTA and VeChain at the beginning, especially like VeChain. I was pretty big in that ecosystem just because, well, they were based in China as well. So I spoke to a lot of the team and I could see that they were really actually doing things. And that was my entry point actually to the professional side. They made some connections to Cointelegraph, who was launching a consulting team very early on. That became the research team. And I think what saved me in crypto, because I probably would have lost a lot of money on those coins, was one of my first tasks at Cointelegraph Research was to do a report on DeFi protocols, this new thing called DeFi. So I just went down the DeFi rabbit hole, talking to all of these OG DeFi products. Some of them are still here. And yeah, just put together a report covering all the different verticals. And that's when I kind of snapped out of it. And I was like, okay, it's not this future tech that's going to data, provenance, all these buzzwords. This is something that's actually I can use right now. The yield farming craze happened, the food coins, and you start to see it. And then from there, that's where I met the trading firms, the financial side of it, and got connected to Woo, which brings us to where we were. I was probably the first like full-time Woo hire on the business side. Everyone before had been tech related, and I've been here ever since. I think I always wondered why. We did a personality test with the founder. Actually, I realized we had very similar personalities in terms of things like giving very direct feedback on things, just really trying to be very truthful about how things are. And I think that's sort of a like mentality you kind of need for crypto, right? Because there's so many mistakes you can be making. And yeah, I mean, I think in general, like our philosophies are somewhat aligned, and like I wanted to get into crypto to improve my ability to manage my finances, right? And to traders, that's expanded, right? Like we want traders to have better performance, better access to strategies that were previously gatekept by institutions. So yeah, I think that's the alignment. For me, it's not just another job. It's really like something I enjoy doing.
Yeah. I think a lot of people have very similar attitudes towards it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us, Ben. Give us your Pith and Woo spiel that you would like to get into.
Yeah, go ahead and pop my screen back up on the
please.
The so for those of you who do not know, this is the Pith OIS staking dashboard. We at Woo, because we are one of the early data providers, a lot of the markets, we provide that market directly to the Pith network, which allows the oracles to have access to this real-time institutional trading and market data. Woo is the number 4 staker in terms of size, and you can see a lot of the different facts about like historical APY, the number of feeds we're providing, it's very high. And right now we only have 45% of our pool full. So if you have Pith tokens and you are looking to stake, go ahead and jump into our pool. What I can promise is we are going to be providing as close to 100% uptime as possible. And we're going to be here for the long haul with Pith. So it's a good pool to stake and forget. But yeah, in general, we just want the Pith network to keep growing and keep supporting our products, because, when we deploy on new chains, one of the first things we always ask is like what Oracle and, infrastructure is available. So when Pith is there, it makes our life easier as a builder. I'm sure Arjun, I see you nodding in agreement over there. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, just building synergies between products. Invite any Pith holder out there to add some tokens to our pool.
I love it. You guys Woo is one of the few doxed publishers as well. Can you explain why the reason behind doxing yourselves like that? Because I know that there's obviously a bunch of other institutions and big players that aren't necessarily all that keen to dox themselves like that. I'm curious to know your reasons.
Yeah, I'm more curious to know why others aren't, actually. I mean, I think it's a great initiative. And when, at the time, your ecosystem BD rep in Singapore came to us about this opportunity to stake, we shared it internally, and everyone was, this seems great. Let's do it. Let's encourage people. I think we're in a rare position, maybe relative to like trading firms, in that we have users on our platform who buy PIT tokens, who then might be like, what do I do with these tokens? Oh, here's someone I can stake on who I know is reliable. So that's definitely an incentive. But for us, it's always a branding opportunity to show that we're collaborating and supporting other builders. So I think it's a great thing.
Nice. We appreciate it on our side of things, and the community absolutely appreciates it. We get a lot of feedback from people asking why there aren't more publishers doxing themselves on that side of things, and letting people know who's publishing what and all that kind of thing. So a commendable effort from Woo there. I'm really glad you guys have chosen to do that. We're coming up on the hour, guys. I'm conscious of everybody's time. I've got a final question for both of you that I ask all of our guests on Beyond the Price, which is one piece of advice that you would give to yourself now, knowing everything you do about crypto, if you were entering the space today.
You want to go first, Arjun?
Let's start with Arjun.
One piece of advice I'd give to myself, I'm trying not to think of anything too sarcastic, like buy XRP or something like that, right?
Good advice, though.
I would honestly say, do you want to be right or do you want to make money? As a community person, I think there were too many echo chambers that I was in across different cycles. I think it's absolutely critical to broaden your horizon with as many people as possible, and you'd be surprised of the alpha and insights, the open-mindedness and self-awareness from people in the community as such, as opposed to just KOLs and large influencers in the ecosystem. And I think being open-minded and talking to as many people as possible to widen your spectrum of understanding is the best thing that you can do, because if you can break your ideologies and learn more about other people's theses and break that down and come to new ones and evolve it, you'll do very, very well in this space. If you hold on to your thesis too tight and you protect it because you think you're right and you've done all this X amount of research and you've been told and other KOLs that you follow validate it, you'll probably do very, very poorly.
Yep. Strong opinions loosely held.
Mine's similar to that, but I would apply it more as kind of like how you perceive the industry. And I think it's like force yourself to find the new innovation like every 2 months. Because I've constantly found myself like making the mistake where you see someone who's an early mover and you see a trend and you think, oh wow, it's time to jump on. A great example being things like FTX and Binance. You could not imagine a world in 2020 that 4 years later FTX would cease to exist and Binance would be struggling, but I would say having to evolve very quickly to maintain their market share, right? The challenges this industry throws at us, and everything from like ETH flowing to Solana, and now Solana rotating to other things, right? Like you really cannot stay locked into a trend for very long. I think the builders who figure that out quickly are the ones who have been very successful in this space, right? And even now we're seeing these like 20-year-old kids coming up with products that are just killing it, right? And all it was just like a simple change in the way they think that allowed them to see this, like pump fund, right? Like who would have thought pump fund, but it was there the whole time. It just took a couple of kids, a few hours to imagine what this would be and then to build it. Now it's like one of the biggest revenue generating crypto businesses that are out there.
Yeah. Fantastic answers. Thank you both for joining us here on Beyond the Price. It's been a pleasure chatting to you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Likewise, Chop. I would definitely encourage anyone watching, if they're not already in the Woo community, to check it out. We've got a lot of community-focused events coming up this summer, and we're going to be releasing a new AI product in a few months. We'll have a closed beta coming up even before that. So it'll be an exciting time to get involved with Woo and check everything out. So doing the whole marketing thing now, follow the socials and click the link in the bio. But yeah, check it out. We're good people. We're gonna help you make it. So that's our goal.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Arjun, anything else on your side?
Yeah, I'll just say, look, big thank you to you guys and to Woo as well for joining as well. Like big friends of Piff and Woo. Always enjoy like-minded builders getting together to discuss and chop it up. But yeah, same as Ben, follow us on the socials, keep an eye on what's going on with Audley. We have some awesome products coming out very, 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 very soon that gives a lot of power back to the people. And that's all I'd say.
I like that, Arjun. That should be the name of the show, actually. Chop it up.
Chop it up. Yeah. Hell yeah. I don't know if I get that past the rest of the marketing team, but if you guys have got my back, then
Pepito's absolutely fuming he hears this back.
Yeah.
I'm glad you liked it. That was a risky joke to make at the end of a hour-long show.
All right, thank you guys, appreciate it.
No problem, guys. Thank you very much for joining.
Bye now.
All right, everybody. That's it for Beyond the Price number 11. Holy moly, we're at 11 already. We'll be back next week with Beyond the Price 12. Don't know who we're talking to. It'll be someone interesting. Thank you again, Arjun and Ben, for joining us. Pleasure chatting to you. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Pleasure having you listen to us chat. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you in the timeline, in the Discord, or on chain. Enjoy the rest of your week, everybody. Bye.